My phone buzzed once, just once. A single message from my daughter lit the screen. "You're not needed." When I tried to call, the line went dead. Blocked. I stared at the cold coffee mug in my hands, the one she gave me on Father's Day 3 years ago. Then came the knock. Not frantic, not soft, just final. And I knew that knock wasn't just at my door. It was at the life I thought I still had. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and tell me in the comments where you're watching from right now. The house was quiet, but my coffee tasted bitter. It had rained that morning, a light drizzle tapping the roof like an old memory refusing to fade. I sat at the kitchen table, fingers wrapped around the coffee mug I'd used every day for years. The same one Martha had once bought, back when mornings meant laughter and newsprint, not echoes and silence. But today, the mug felt different in my hand. Lighter, somehow. Emptier. The house around me held its breath. No radio. No footsteps upstairs. Just the hum of the fridge and the occasional creak of wood settling into the silence. From the hallway, I could see the edge of the living room rug, slightly misaligned like someone had rushed through and never looked back. I raised the mug, took a sip, and winced. Bitter. Too bitter. I always added sugar. 3 spoons. Not 2. The sugar bowl sat beside the sink, untouched. It wasn't forgetfulness. It was avoidance. I hadn't made this coffee. My daughter had. Amanda had been off all week. Clipped answers, sudden errands, and her husband Blake, well, he never bothered to mask his tone. "You should rest more, old man," he said last night when I came in from trimming the hedges. Like rest was code for retire from your own life. I adjusted the chair beneath me. It wobbled slightly. I used to fix those things the moment they started acting up. That morning, I simply let it wobble. From the hallway shelf, Martha's photo watched over the stillness, her eyes warm, her smile soft. She would have said something by now. She would have noticed the tension before I ever had to. Outside, Amanda's SUV was already gone. No goodbye, no note, just gone. Blake hadn't come down. Maybe he wouldn't. Or maybe he thought silence was a form of power. I washed the mug slowly. The ceramic still warm, water running over the rim like time trying to erase the fingerprints of comfort. As I dried it, I noticed something strange. A new mug sat beside the dish rack. White, glossy, with bold black letters, "World's Best Boss." It wasn't mine. I stared at it a second longer than I should have. There was a brief moment, half a heartbeat, where I considered asking about it, but I didn't. I simply placed my own mug back on the shelf, second row to the left, where it had always lived. Familiar things should have a home. Then I heard the door upstairs shut. Not slammed, just firm, controlled, like someone making a point without the courtesy of a conversation. I walked to the hallway and called out, "Blake?" No response. Just the ticking of the wall clock above Martha's framed embroidery. Another door shut. This one, the front. I stepped outside, rain still misting from the gutters. The mailbox clanked when I opened it, empty. Across the street, Mrs. Evans waved from her porch but didn't call out. She always used to call out. Something was shifting. I turned to go back in, and that's when I noticed it. The old lawn chair, the one I always sat in, the one Martha had reupholstered with blue and white stripes, was folded up and leaning against the fence, replaced by a sleeker, newer model, black metal, cold. No one had told me. Inside, the hallway smelled faintly of pine cleaner and something else, something like detachment. A scent too sterile for a home. I paused in front of the hallway mirror. My reflection stared back at me, older than I remembered. A little stooped, grayer around the temples. But still me. Still the man who built this house. Still the man who carried 3 jobs when Amanda was born, just to keep the roof over our heads. I turned away from the mirror and walked toward the living room. That's when I noticed the photo frame. It was turned around backward. The picture facing the wall. It was the photo of Amanda, age 7, sitting in my lap, holding a toy stethoscope. She had told me she wanted to be a doctor that day. I had told her I'd pay for every class, every textbook, even if it meant selling the truck. The frame hadn't fallen. There was no dust or smudge. Someone had flipped it deliberately. I reached for it, hesitated, then left it as it was. Back in the kitchen, the mug still glistened from the wash. I picked it up again, this time not to drink, but just to feel something solid in my hand. It was strange how one object could hold so much weight, years of comfort. Now just clay and silence. My phone buzzed once. I set the mug down and checked the screen. No message. No missed call. Just a calendar reminder. Blake's promotion dinner, 6 p.m. I hadn't been invited. The mug made a soft clink as I placed it back onto the table. Outside, the rain had stopped, but the clouds refused to clear. That night, I heard it again, a door closing softly upstairs. But no one else was home. The chair at the table had been moved, but not for me. Dinner was louder than usual that night. Not because of conversation, but because of everything else. Silverware clinked more harshly. The chairs scraped louder against the tile. Blake's laugh was sharp, echoing, a little too loud for a room that wasn't sharing the joke. He sat at the head of the table now. Not that I had ever cared about seating, but it used to be where Martha had insisted I sit. Not for control, just for presence. But Blake had claimed it weeks ago. And now, my usual seat had been shifted slightly, moved closer to the kitchen, away from the center. It was a small move, but it spoke louder than words. Amanda served dinner, garlic chicken and mashed potatoes, a meal I taught her to make when she was 16. She didn't meet my eyes when she placed the plate in front of me. Blake dug in before anyone else. "You know," he said, mouth half full, "it's wild how much smoother things are now. Like we finally got the house running properly." He didn't look at me when he said it, but everyone else did. I took a slow sip from my mug, brought it back out from the cabinet, just to remind myself that something still belonged to me. The ceramic felt heavier tonight. Maybe I was holding it tighter. Amanda glanced at Blake, then back at me. "He's been working really hard, Dad. I think he's earned it." "Earned what?" I asked gently. She didn't answer. Blake smiled. "Respect. Space. Maybe even a little silence." I set the mug down. "I didn't realize silence was something you had to earn." He chuckled. "Only from people who think they still run things when they don't." The room froze. Amanda didn't speak. She just picked at her plate like the conversation was happening in another house. I didn't reply. Not with words. I simply pushed my chair back, stood up, and placed my napkin down. Not slammed, just placed. The mug, still half full, remained on the table. "I'm done," I said quietly. Blake leaned back, smug. "Already? Thought you'd have more to say." I didn't turn around. The next morning, I walked to the corner store. Needed coffee beans, real ones. Not the bland, instant stuff Blake bought in bulk. The woman behind the counter, Janine, was folding newspaper bundles when I entered. She looked up and smiled. "Hey, Mr. Hale." "Morning," I said. She hesitated. "Hey, everything okay at home?" I paused. "Why?" Janine shrugged awkwardly. "It's just Blake was in here yesterday, talking pretty loud. Said something about how you were tired from relevance or something. Thought it was just a bad joke. But folks heard. I felt the muscles in my jaw tighten." "He said that here?" I asked. She nodded. Loud enough for the deli guys to stop slicing ham. I thanked her, paid for the coffee, and left. As I stepped outside, I spotted Mr. Lansing, our old neighbor, tending to his flower beds. He used to ask me for pruning tips every spring. This time, he didn't wave, just gave me a nod. The kind you give someone you pity, not someone you respect. Later that afternoon, I was back home, sipping coffee alone at the table, when Amanda walked in from her shift. She didn't notice I was there at first. Her phone was to her ear. "No, Blake, I told you I'll talk to him tonight. He's being weird, that's all." She looked up, froze. I didn't speak. I just raised my mug slightly. She hung up, tucked her phone away. Dad, she said, cautiously, can we talk about last night? I nodded. Go ahead, she exhaled. He's under pressure, you know. New role, family to support. He didn't mean it like that. I didn't hear him apologize, I said. Well, he didn't mean for it to sound harsh. I took another sip. He said I don't run things anymore. She shrugged. Do you? The silence that followed was thick, unforgiving. I stood and walked toward the hallway, where our family photo wall still hung, at least I thought it did. But when I got there, I saw a frame missing. The one of Amanda's college graduation, where I stood with her in cap and gown, holding her shoulders like the world depended on her smile. In its place, a new photo had been added. Amanda and Blake, holding the keys to the house. No mention of me. No sign I existed. That evening, Mrs. Evans dropped by with pie. She glanced around the living room. I remember when you used to host Bible group here, she said gently. Times change, I replied. She handed me the pie dish. We still remember who built the porch, Bill. Just so you know. And with that, she left. As I placed the pie in the fridge, Amanda passed behind me and whispered, Maybe it's time you moved on, Dad. The bank letter wasn't addressed to me, but it was my money. It came in a plain white envelope. No return address, no warning. Just a folded letter left carelessly on the kitchen counter, partially soaked by a ring of water, the kind that forms when someone sets a mug down without a coaster. The ink had bled slightly, but the header was still clear. Joint Loan Agreement. Final Notice. I stared at the names. Amanda Hale. Blake R. Lawrence. My signature was nowhere on it. But my name, my full legal name, appeared under the section marked Collateral Provider. The house, my house, was listed as collateral. I read it again, slower this time, as if maybe the meaning would soften. Maybe it was a mistake, a mix-up. But deep down, I knew it wasn't. Later that afternoon, I waited until Amanda returned from the grocery store. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't slam the paper down. I just handed it to her, quietly. She looked at it for half a second too long before speaking. Oh, that. Yeah. We meant to talk to you. We? Blake and I. We're consolidating a few things. The bank approved it. It's just temporary. I pointed to the page. This house is listed. She hesitated. Yeah, it's how we got the lower interest rate. And you didn't think I should know? She gave a small shrug, almost like a teenager caught sneaking out past curfew. You weren't using it, Dad. I mean, you live here, but it's not like you're paying anything anymore. We figured it made sense. That word we cut deeper than any insult Blake had ever thrown. This house is in my name, I said. Joint name, she corrected, too quickly. I had no memory of adding her to the deed. Martha and I had discussed it, sure, but it had never been finalized. Or so I thought. I narrowed my eyes. Did you forge anything? Amanda looked genuinely taken aback. What? No, Dad, come on. But she wouldn't meet my gaze. Blake strolled in right on cue, keys jingling in hand. Hey, old man. Saw the mail, huh? I said nothing. He smiled like someone who'd already won the argument. Listen, this place needed to start working for us, not just sitting in your retirement bubble. We're optimizing. You should be thanking us. I looked down at the mug in my hand, and realized I was gripping it hard enough for my knuckles to go white. Let me be very clear, I said. If this house gets touched without my consent, I'll take steps. Blake smirked. You'll take steps? What does that mean? You'll call the ghost of your lawyer buddy from 82? Amanda placed a hand on his arm, trying to quiet him. He didn't stop. We're in charge now. And frankly, if you can't keep up, maybe you should think about moving to one of those, what do they call it, retirement havens? I set the mug down slowly. On the table sat a stack of folded laundry, Amanda's. On top, a fresh white t-shirt with bold black letters across the chest. Adulting like a boss. I stared at it a moment too long. You know, I said. When you were 12, you scraped your knee on the driveway. I carried you inside, made you cocoa in this mug, and told you nothing was too big for us to fix. Amanda looked away. That was the last time you ever used that cup, I said quietly. Neither of them spoke. I turned and left the room. That night, after they had gone to bed, I went to the garage, pulled out a box labeled Tax, Old Files. I hadn't touched it in years. Inside were deed copies, insurance records, and a thick folder marked Property Rights, Hale Residence. I sat at the workbench under the flickering bulb and began to scan every page. I wasn't just reading, I was remembering, tracing back 30 years of every late payment scraped together, every letter Martha signed in hope and trust. I found something. An old grant deed notarized, still in my name. The new deed, the one Amanda claimed was joint, was dated just 3 years ago. And the signature that was supposed to be mine? It wasn't. It didn't even match the one on the page before it. In the morning, I made coffee the old way. French press. No shortcuts. No silence. I poured it into my mug. The original one. The one with the tiny crack near the handle. The one Amanda had gifted me before college and forgotten the moment she met Blake. I sat at the table, placed the mug in the exact center, and spread out both copies of the deeds side by side. Let it sit there. Let it breathe. Let them see it. The moment Blake walked in, his eyes locked on the papers, and for the first time, he didn't smirk. He stared like a man who just heard thunder without seeing the lightning first. She blocked my number, and for once I didn't call back. After the deed documents hit the table, the house went colder than usual. No one raised their voice. No doors slammed, but everything tightened. Amanda stopped cooking. Blake stopped pretending. 3 days passed in that kind of silence. Then came the text. I had tried to reach Amanda earlier that morning. Just a simple message. We need to talk about the deed. The screen blinked once, then blacked out. Blocked. She didn't call. Didn't explain. Instead, Blake came home that evening with takeout and a new router box under his arm. I've changed the Wi-Fi, he said over his shoulder. New passwords for the people paying the bills. He didn't even look at me. I stood at the threshold of the kitchen. Amanda was already seated. She looked tired. But it wasn't fatigue, it was detachment. That soft numbness you learn when you've already made your choice. I sat down. My mug was on the table. Clean. Cold. Empty. Blake placed his food down. We need to have a conversation, he said, folding his hands like some underpaid HR rep. I didn't respond. Just stared at Amanda. She didn't blink. Blake continued. Look, Bill, this living arrangement isn't working anymore. It's confusing the roles. Roles? Yeah, you've got your life. We've got ours. You're still here physically, but you're not contributing. I stayed silent. Amanda finally spoke. Dad, you can stay. But things have to change. Blake cut in. Exactly. Think of it like adapting, evolving. And if I don't? I asked. Amanda looked down at the table, like she couldn't bear to watch herself say it. Then maybe it's time you move on. It wasn't the words that hit hardest. It was the tone, the script, the fact that they had clearly rehearsed this. I could almost hear them practicing the lines, softening the threats into logical reasoning, padding the betrayal with buzzwords like evolving and contributing. My mug still sat between us. Amanda glanced at it once, then reached across the table and slid it toward the edge out of the center, out of the way. A gesture, nothing more. But I felt it like a shove. I built this house, I said. Blake chuckled. And now we're maintaining it. Amanda's voice dropped. Don't make this harder than it has to be. Killer line. I leaned forward, met her eyes, and said, You don't live here, Dad. You just haven't left yet. She winced. That's when I knew she didn't say it first. He did. I stood up, didn't shout, didn't explain. Just walked to the hallway closet, pulled down the old suitcase, The one Martha and I had taken on every vacation still had the red string tied to the handle from our trip to Maine. In the guest room, I packed slowly. 3 shirts, 2 pairs of jeans, 1 folder, the folder with both deed copies, notarized stamps, and my own name in ink that never faded. I opened the drawer, paused, then pulled out the mug. It had survived so much. Moves, drops, 1 dishwasher flood, but what it couldn't survive was erasure. I wrapped it in a hand towel and placed it in the suitcase. Amanda stood in the hallway when I emerged. "No, Blake. Just her. You don't have to do this," she said. "Then why did you block me?" Her eyes widened for a split second, then settled into resignation. "Because you wouldn't stop interfering." I nodded slowly. "That's what fathers do, Amanda. We interfere." I wheeled the suitcase to the door. My keys sat in the bowl by the coat rack. For a second, I thought about tossing them at her feet, but no, that would have been theatrical. Instead, I reached into the inside pocket of my coat and pulled out a folded note. 3 lines. Account number, property tax ID, final bank balance. I handed it to her. She opened it, read it, looked up, pale. "You're removing me?" I nodded. "Already did." Her voice cracked. "You don't mean that." I said nothing. She stood frozen at the door as I walked away. And for the first time, I felt like a man no one could ignore anymore. If your child gave you this choice, obey or leave, what would you do? Let me know in the comments. I pulled the suitcase from the closet. Its zipper sounded louder than thunder. The motel room smelled like cleaning fluid and air conditioning. 2 single beds, 1 lamp, a nightstand with a drawer that wouldn't close all the way. But it was quiet, and it was mine. I set my suitcase down carefully, unzipped it, and lifted out only 1 item, my mug, wrapped in a towel, still intact. I placed it on the cheap Formica counter like it was a relic from a former life. Earlier that morning, I hadn't said a word when I left. I'd rolled the suitcase down the driveway with the coffee mug tucked safely inside, and the sound of its wheels over the cracked cement reminded me of Martha's walker in her final days, stubborn, slow, undeniable. Amanda hadn't come out. Blake had peeked through the blinds but didn't open the door. I didn't look back. I stopped at a gas station just before town. The clerk, a kid in his 20s, blinked at me when I handed over my ID to verify the prepaid card. "Hale," he said, "you live over on Bunker Lane?" "Not anymore," I replied. He glanced at my suitcase. "Huh." And just like that, the whisper started. Small towns move faster than gossip columns when something breaks the routine. The motel manager, a gray-bearded man named Carl, barely said 10 words, gave me the key, a printed receipt, and a half-sincere, "if you need anything." I unpacked in silence. A few shirts, a folder of documents, and the mug now set beside the sink like a keepsake from a battle. Then I did the one thing I hadn't done in years. I opened my laptop. The online bank portal blinked awake like a tired old friend. Amanda's name was still on 2 shared accounts. Blake's was on 1. Mortgage payment? Due in 3 days. Property tax? Paid early last month. Line of credit? Active but tied to my signature. I stared at the screen and remembered every overtime shift I'd worked to build this safety net. And now they were tightening it around my neck. I clicked Edit Autopay. Cancelled. That evening, I walked to the diner. Not for food, I wasn't hungry. I needed to see faces. Hear the tone. Inside, the chatter paused for half a second when I entered. Then picked up again but softer. Tilted. Watchful. An old friend, Roy from the hardware store, spotted me. "Bill?" he asked, standing halfway up. "Everything all right?" "Just needed a break," I said, sliding onto a bar stool. Roy sat back down. His eyes said he didn't believe me, but he respected the silence. The waitress, Trish, brought over a cup of coffee without asking. As she set it down, she whispered, "Heard your son-in-law's been real proud of himself lately." I didn't answer. I just pulled my mug from my coat pocket and quietly poured the diner coffee into it. Roy smiled. Still got that thing, huh? Always, I said. It doesn't lie. That night, in the motel, I listened through the thin walls to the hum of TV from the next room. A man coughed twice. A woman laughed at something distant. I opened the folder again. Inside were 3 documents. The forged deed. The original notarized copy in my name. A letter from Martha, written after her surgery, saying the house should always belong to whoever respects its walls. Her handwriting still made me choke up. Outside, a storm began. Fitting. The next morning, my phone buzzed. Not Amanda. Not Blake. The bank. A notification. New login detected from unfamiliar device. Loan inquiry flagged as unusual. Someone was trying to move faster than the fallout. Too late. I zipped my coat, grabbed the mug from the counter, and walked to the front office. Carl looked up from his crossword. Need to extend your stay? Not yet, I said. Need a fax machine. Still got one. I handed him the deed copies and the mortgage notice. Fax them where? To a real estate attorney and the fraud division. Carl looked at me for a beat longer than expected, then nodded. Respectful. Good. As I walked out, the sky was finally clearing, and my silence had started making more noise than any of their lies. By sunrise, I had a phone in one hand and their mortgage in the other. The motel light flickered once before, holding steady. I liked that. Things that struggle a little before they work. I laid the folder flat on the desk, lined up the edges like I used to with blueprints back in the day, and opened my laptop. The screen blinked to life with a soft hum. Familiar. Functional. Mine. I reached for the mug sitting beside it. Martha's initials still scratched faintly along the bottom. The handle chipped slightly. Perfect in its imperfection. I took one slow sip, exhaled, and began. I logged into the banking portal. The house mortgage Blake had attached himself to? I had set it on autopay years ago out of routine, not trust. Click. Cancel autopay. A warning message flashed. Canceling may result in late fees or foreclosure. I smiled. Confirmed. The button turned gray. The schedule cleared. Just like that. It felt light. Like cutting off a leech and watching the skin start to breathe again. I pulled out the separate tab for the car insurance. Amanda's sedan and Blake's truck were both under my family plan. The same one I had carried since Amanda was in college. Remove vehicle. I selected. First hers, then his. Remove authorized driver. Blake's name vanished. I didn't pause. I didn't second guess. Each click was a line drawn in stone. They had 2 authorized cards. Grocery expenses, gas, streaming subscriptions. I hovered over the remove access button. Blake had once told me, "You're just old credit with a face." Now he had neither. Click. Gone. Then I called the bank direct. I'd like to convert my checking account back to single holder, I told the woman on the line. Are you sure, Mr. Hale? Removing your daughter will revoke her online access and payment history. That's the point. She paused. Understood. Click. Silence. Weight lifted. By the time the sun breached the motel blinds, my accounts were mine again. No parasites. No signatures leeching off my past. Just numbers. Mine. I leaned back in the chair, fingers wrapped around the mug. Killer line. For the first time in years, my account balance belonged only to me. I spent the next few hours organizing paper copies, dates, notarizations, email threads. I wanted a timeline, a weapon. Blake liked numbers? I had them now. I walked to the lobby to use the printer. Carl handed me a fresh stack. You movin' against them? He asked quietly. Just reclaiming what's mine. He tapped the mug I held. Looks like war to me. At noon, I took a walk through town, down Main Street, past the coffee shop, the hardware store, the diner. People looked up, nodded. A few waved like they didn't know what to say yet but wanted to say something. At the bank, I stepped inside and was greeted by Ruth, a teller I'd known since she was a teenager. "Mr. Hale," she said. "I heard. Well, folks are talking. Let them. Anything I can help with?" "Yes," I said. "I want a printed copy of every transaction tied to Blake Lawrence in the last 6 months." She blinked. "That's bold." "It's legal. He was co-signer on a loan he wasn't authorized for. I have fraud papers coming in." She looked at me carefully, then nodded. "I'll have it ready this afternoon." Back at the motel, I listened to the silence. It didn't feel empty anymore. It felt earned. No voicemails from Amanda yet. But I knew the billing cycles. By this time tomorrow, the house would know. By nightfall, their phones would ring, their bills would bounce, and my silence would be deafening. Have you ever seen a father cut off support like this? Tell me below, how far would you go for respect? By Wednesday, my phone showed 2 missed calls. By Friday, there were 22. The first voicemail came at 9:12 a.m. "Dad, the bank just called. Something's off with the mortgage. Did you change something?" I didn't respond. By noon, 2 more. "Hey, it's Blake. You need to fix this, man. You can't just... This is joint responsibility." Then came the texts. "Amanda, please answer. It's serious. Did you cancel something? Blake, you're not gonna win this." By Friday morning, the voicemail count hit 22. The tones changed with each one. Curiosity turned to frustration, then to fear. I didn't pick up. I sat at the motel's tiny table, sipping from my mug, while the window shook gently with wind. Every ring that echoed through the silence made me feel steadier. Not colder, just clearer. Amanda's voice cracked on voicemail 25. "Dad, the card declined at the pharmacy. Blake said the truck insurance lapsed. I don't know what's going on." I deleted the message. Then another. And another. Like swatting flies. At the diner that afternoon, Trish didn't even ask anymore. Just poured coffee and slid a piece of pie my way. Roy leaned over from the next booth. "Heard Blake got turned down for a car loan yesterday. Told the guy he had a glitch in the system. Guess you're the glitch, huh?" I nodded. Across the diner, someone said just loud enough, "About time someone stood up to that arrogant jerk." Outside, the wind carried whispers down the sidewalk. Even the air felt different. Back at the motel, I went for a walk. 1 block, 2 blocks, past the church, past the post office. A young mom I barely knew gave me a strange look as I passed, then said quietly, "You're Mr. Hale, right?" "Yes." "Good for you." She didn't elaborate. She didn't need to. Back inside, I poured myself another cup, from the same old thermos I'd used on Martha's hospital visits. The mug caught the light just right. The scratch near the handle reflected a sliver of Sunday. Amanda had once said, "You always drink from that one like it gives you powers." Back then, I told her it didn't. Now, maybe it did. That evening, voicemail 31 hit. This time, Blake, "You think you're smart? You think this means anything? We'll file elder abuse if we have to. Don't think you're untouchable." Then he hung up. Empty threats were loud voices. But Amanda's next call didn't. She sounded small, frayed. "Dad, I just want to talk. Just you and me, please." I stared at the screen until it went dark. I visited the bank again the next day. Ruth slid a folder across the counter. "All the flagged transactions," she said. "Also, the loan request Blake submitted. Was it approved?" "Denied. He listed the house as sole asset but couldn't verify ownership." "Did he use my name?" She hesitated. "Yes." I took the papers and walked 2 blocks to the sheriff's office. Sergeant Dale looked up from his desk. A broad man with a calm voice and sharp eyes. "Mr. Hale," he said, "heard some noise about your place. I need to file a fraud complaint. And maybe something for harassment. Calls haven't stopped." He nodded. "We've dealt with Blake before. Cocky type. He tried to claim my property as his. That's not cocky, that's criminal." He took the papers. Anything else you want done? I reached into my coat and placed the mug on the desk beside the files. Dale raised an eyebrow. Evidence? No, I said. Reminder. That night, the motel room creaked louder than usual. Wind rattled the windows. But I slept easy. Until 2:47 vormittags. 3 knocks. Fast. Hard. I slipped out of bed, walked to the door, and peered through the peephole. Through the peephole, I saw them both, Amanda and Blake. And for the first time, they looked more desperate than dangerous. A sharp knock rattled my motel door. Through the peephole, I saw my own blood. I didn't open the door right away. Amanda stood in the hallway, arms folded tightly across her chest, eyes rimmed red. Blake stood behind her, arms wide, pacing like a man rehearsing a courtroom speech. I slid the deadbolt halfway, cracked the door just enough. Dad, Amanda started, voice already trembling. We need to talk. I didn't move. You blocked my number, I said flatly. I was angry. You forged my signature. I didn't. She didn't know, Blake interrupted. I handled it. She had nothing to do with that part. She turned to him, eyes flashing. What part? He paused half a second too long. I let the silence stretch until it became unbearable. Then I stepped aside, wordlessly. They walked in. Amanda first, unsure. Blake trailing behind like a dog off its leash. The motel room was dimly lit. Quiet, faint smell of coffee. My mug sat beside the open folder on the table. Deeds, statements, printouts all spread neatly like pieces of a trial about to begin. Amanda sat on the edge of the bed. Blake remained standing, arms crossed. You've gone too far, he said. Funny, I replied. That's exactly what the bank said when they saw your loan application. Amanda blinked. Loan? Blake stiffened. You used my house as collateral, I said, turning toward her. Claimed sole access, signature, didn't match mine. Amanda's mouth opened, but no sound came out. I continued, calm and steady. The bank flagged it. I have the file, right here. Want to see? Blake scoffed. This is ridiculous. Is it? I asked, picking up the paper. Because here's your name, here's the fake signature, and here, I pulled another page from the stack, is the original notarized deed in my name. Predates your marriage by 6 years. Amanda reached out, took the document from my hand, read, and froze. Killer line. Blake, she whispered. You told me he co-signed it with you. His face hardened. I said we had approval. You said he signed it. Her voice cracked. You said we were safe. He stepped toward her. I was keeping us safe. I took a sip from the mug. It clinked gently against the ceramic as I set it back down. Let's be very clear, I said. You lied to her. You stole from me. You tried to rewrite the ground beneath your own roof. Blake's voice sharpened. She was in on it. No, I said, turning fully toward Amanda. She wasn't, but she let it happen. Amanda's eyes filled with tears. She stood up, slow, and turned toward the door. But Blake caught her wrist. Don't, he growled. Let her go, I said, calm as a gunshot. You don't get to. She's my daughter, I said. Not your hostage. Amanda yanked her arm free. You lied to me, she said. About the loan. About the insurance. You said he gave permission. I was fixing things, Blake hissed. You wouldn't understand. No, she said quietly. I finally do. She stepped outside into the night air. Didn't look back. Blake lingered. You think this is over? He said. No, I replied. I think this is exposure. Consequences come next. He snorted. You'll be alone, you know. That mug's the only thing that'll sit with you at the end of all this. I smiled slightly. Then I'll drink with dignity. He opened the door, but turned once more. One thing about desperate men, Bill, he said. We don't go quietly. He slammed the door. The next morning, I walked into the diner. Same as every morning. But today, silence followed me in. A few heads turned. Conversations paused. I took my usual seat. Trish didn't ask, just poured. Then Roy slid into the booth opposite me. "You all right?" he asked. "I will be." He leaned in. "Blake came by here last week. Loud. Said you were losing it. Said the house was his now. And now?" Roy smiled. "And now folks are reading the paper. And we all know who built that place." He tapped the mug. "You're not alone, Bill. Not anymore." As Roy left, I noticed Amanda outside the window watching from across the street. But this time, she didn't look like someone ready to talk. She looked like someone ready to choose. What do you think he should do next? Stay silent? Or strike back harder? Let me know below. The lawyer didn't blink when I slid the forged deed across the table. The office smelled like fresh paper and old victories. Wall-to-wall law degrees. Certificates with gold trim. A photo of Mr. Frank Daly shaking hands with a judge. And dead center on the desk an empty space he motioned toward like a stage. "Let's see what you've got," he said. I placed the folder down. Deeds. Fraudulent loan application. Insurance logs. Joint account printouts. Timeline. Bank denial letter. Witness note from Ruth. And at the very top, the mug. I didn't mean to place it there, but it ended up front and center anyway. Mr. Daly raised an eyebrow. "Evidence?" "Reminder," I said, "of everything they forgot." He took his time, read silently, flipped pages, cross-referenced signatures. When he finished, he leaned back and folded his hands. "You've got them," he said. I didn't smile, just nodded. Forgery, financial abuse, unauthorized debt application. They'd be lucky to settle this privately. "I don't want luck," I said. "I want clarity." He pulled out a legal pad and started scribbling. "We'll file 2 notices. One to the county recorder's office to block any transfer on the property without your consent. The second to the bank, demanding loan freeze until an investigation's complete." He looked up. "Do you want to pursue charges?" I thought about Amanda. Her face when the truth landed. The weight in her voice when she said, "You said we were safe." Killer line. I want them to feel the weight of what they called freedom. Daly nodded. "Then we'll go with civil complaint first. But we'll hint at felony. Trust me, they'll hear it." That afternoon, I walked the paperwork down to the sheriff's office. Sergeant Dale greeted me with a nod. "Lawyer bite?" "Hard." He grinned. "About time someone did." I handed over a copy of the forged deed and Daly's letterhead notice. "We'll attach this to the complaint," he said. "It'll slow any attempts to sell, borrow, or move equity." "Good." He looked at the mug in my hand. "Still carry that?" "Everywhere." He laughed quietly. "That thing's gonna need a name soon. It's seen more battles than most of us." That evening, the phone finally rang and I picked up. "Amanda." "Dad," she started. "You sent a lawyer?" I did. Her voice trembled. "Blake's freaking out." "He should. We didn't mean to go this far. We thought it was just paperwork." I stayed silent. "You're really going through with it?" "I told you," I said. "There would be consequences." She sniffled on the other end. "He's talking about selling the truck, canceling our lease. He says we'll lose everything." "Then maybe you'll understand what it feels like," I said quietly. "To have your stability stolen without warning." The next morning, a courier arrived at the motel. 2 thick envelopes, one addressed to Blake, one to Amanda, both sealed, both official. Carl, the manager, raised an eyebrow when I brought them back from the front desk. "Evictions?" he asked. "Warnings." He grinned. "Bet they'll read those slower than they read the bank statements." Later that day, I returned to the diner. This time, the silence turned into applause. Literally. A few locals clapped when I walked in. Roy slapped the counter like I'd just hit a home run. "Whole town knows now," Trish whispered. Local paper ran the story. Retired builder uncovers fraud in family mortgage. Didn't name names, but people aren't stupid. I lifted the mug and nodded. A man in the corner booth, new face. Maybe a contractor raised his own mug in return. It felt full circle. At sunset, I walked the long way back, past the old church, the school Amanda once danced in front of during her 5th grade recital. I paused outside their house. Lights on, curtains open, but the porch empty. That porch I built with my bare hands, the rocking chair I used to sit in, gone. Replaced by 2 plastic patio chairs and a forgotten Amazon box. As I turned to leave, the front door opened. Amanda stepped out, barefoot, envelope in hand, and in her eyes wasn't fear. It was something worse. Recognition. Amanda stood barefoot on the porch, holding the envelope like it was burning through her hand. I didn't say anything. She didn't either. Just held the lawyer's envelope in one hand and stared like she hadn't really expected me to show up. Not again. Not after everything. The air between us was brittle. The kind of tension you don't speak into you, just let it stretch until something snaps. Behind her, I could see into the living room. The boxes. The empty bookshelves. The eviction wasn't official yet, but the panic had arrived early. Amanda finally spoke. "He's packing." I didn't ask who he was. I already knew. She looked down at the envelope, voice softer. "It says we have 7 days to respond. After that, the lien blocks everything." I nodded. "That's how it works." She stepped forward, envelope still clutched, and asked the one thing I hadn't prepared for. "Do you want me to choose?" I blinked. That wasn't a threat. It was a daughter looking for a map in a burning house. "I want you to see," I said. "To stop pretending there was no fire." She closed her eyes, jaw trembling. He lied, but I followed him. I signed things without reading. I stayed quiet when you asked questions. And now, I feel like I'm waking up in someone else's life. Killer line. "No, Amanda," I said gently. "You're waking up in mine. The one I built. The one you let him try to burn." She didn't cry. Not fully. Just wiped one cheek, then the other, and whispered, "I'm sorry, Dad." Then Blake stepped out. A duffel bag in one hand, phone in the other, jaw tight with forced calm. He took one look at me, then the mug in my hand, and sneered. "You still carrying that stupid cup around like it means something?" I didn't answer. He walked down the steps, brushing past me. "Hope you enjoy your empty house," he muttered. "Because she'll come with me. Watch." Amanda didn't move. He turned, stared at her. "Right?" Her silence was louder than anything she could have said. He walked to the truck, tried to start it. Didn't work. He cursed, slammed the door, and walked back toward the porch. "This is your fault." He spat at Amanda. "All of it." She didn't flinch, just opened the envelope again. "I should have asked for proof. I should have asked you where the money came from." Blake's voice cracked now. "We were going to flip this place. Use the equity. You knew that. I didn't know you'd steal to do it." He looked around, like realizing for the first time there were people watching. 2 neighbors across the street. An older woman on her porch, shaking her head slowly. One man walking his dog, pretending not to hear but slowing down just enough. Blake shouted, "Y'all want to watch? Fine. Let's all enjoy the fall of the great Hale family." Amanda stepped forward. "We fell when you lied." I turned to go. Didn't need to stay for his exit. I'd seen what I needed. The facade wasn't just cracking. It was crumbling in public, just like it should. Back at the motel, I washed the mug for the 3rd time that day. Not because it was dirty, but because I liked watching the water run clean. Carl walked by, peeked into the doorway. "Quiet in here," he said. "Quieter than their porch." He grinned. "Town's talking. Folks siding with you mostly." "Mostly?" "Well," he leaned against the frame, "some folks think you're being too hard." I looked down at the mug, the fading initials, the faint stain inside that never quite scrubbed out. "Then they haven't been stolen from." He nodded. Fair. That night, I stood outside the motel under the dull glow of the sign. I didn't feel triumphant. Just ready. Ready for whatever came next. The next morning, a sheriff's deputy knocked on my door. And he wasn't alone. Amanda stood beside him, holding something tighter than fear. The church bell rang, but it wasn't the sound that turned heads. It was who walked in behind me. I hadn't planned to go. Sunday service wasn't a habit anymore. Not since Martha. Not since the house turned cold. But that morning, I felt the weight in my chest. And the only place I knew to carry it was into a pew. I walked in late on purpose. Eyes turned, of course. That's the nature of small towns. Not just curiosity. It was calculation. Is he okay? Is he proud? Is he broken? I wasn't sure myself. I took a seat on the far left, near the aisle, 2 rows from the back. The mug came with me. Not a flask. Not a Bible. That mug. Pastor Glenn noticed it right away. His brow lifted, almost smiled. He knew. Everyone knew. Halfway through the sermon, the doors creaked open. Amanda stepped in. Alone. Hair pinned. Shoulders square. Envelope clutched against her chest like scripture. People whispered. An old man in the front row turned to his wife. A girl leaned into her mother's shoulder. Amanda walked slowly down the aisle and sat beside me. We didn't look at each other. Not yet. Pastor Glenn cleared his throat. His voice shifted mid-sermon. Sometimes, he said, it's not the thief that's obvious. It's the silence after. The way people treat what they took. Heads turned again. My mug sat in full view on the pew divider. Amanda reached over, slowly, and placed the envelope beside it. After the service, Pastor Glenn approached us in the vestibule. Bill, he said warmly. Been a while. Too long, I replied. His eyes moved to Amanda. And you? Heard there's been some sorting out. Amanda nodded. More sorting than expected. He glanced down at the mug. Still carrying that thing? I held it up gently. Killer line. It used to be a memory. Now it's a mirror. He didn't ask what I meant. He just squeezed my shoulder once and moved on. Outside, the gossip waited like cold air. 2 women by the garden bench stared openly. One of them muttered, "That's the daughter?" The other replied, "Looks like she finally showed her face." Amanda flinched. "They'll talk?" she whispered. "They always do," I said. "But today, they're talking about you, not me." We walked to the parking lot in silence. She held the envelope between her palms like she was warming herself with it. When we reached my car, she finally spoke. "It's my signed withdrawal from the house title, and a personal affidavit confirming Blake acted without my full consent." I stared at her. She didn't blink. "Why now?" I asked. "Because the church gasped when I sat next to you," she said. "And I realized I've spent months protecting a man who wouldn't even stand beside me when it mattered." Her voice broke. "I don't want to rebuild with someone who burns every foundation." I opened the door. She paused. "I'm not asking to be forgiven," she said. "Then what are you asking?" She hesitated, then reached into her purse, pulled out a small item, the broken handle of a mug. "My mug." She handed it to me. "I found it in the backyard. Blake threw it at the trash can. Missed." I took it, turned it slowly in my hand. The crack ran right through the initials, but the shape still held. It was no longer just symbolic. It was proof. Proof of what had survived the violence, and what had failed to aim right. Amanda turned and walked away. No begging, no promise. Just a broken handle in my palm, and the sound of the church bell ringing again. By Monday morning, I wasn't just a father. I was a plaintiff. I signed the final page with a pen older than Blake's promises. Daly nodded without ceremony. "It's done. The house deed is frozen under protective litigation. Civil claim officially filed. And the letter to his employer? Priority mailed. The fraud charge and attempted property seizure aren't just civil risks. His financial license is now under review. I didn't smile. Not exactly. But I did lift the mug beside me and take a slow, deliberate sip. He always thought paperwork was just ink, I said. Now he'll learn it bleeds. Daly packed the folder and asked, "Want to include the press?" I shook my head. "Not yet. Small towns leak better than faucets." He laughed. "Fair point." I left his office and walked through the courthouse square with a calm I hadn't felt in months. Across the street, the library's community board had a new flyer. Upcoming estate planning seminar. Protect what you've built. Below it, my face. Not planned. Not authorized. Just respect. Ruth must have added it. She'd taken a photo at the bank last week. Small things carry weight here. Just like a mug in a man's hand. That evening, I returned to the house one last time. Amanda had already moved out. Boxes gone. Her key slid under the doormat with a note. "Thank you for letting me wake up." But the porch still held something. A plain brown envelope taped to the door. My name written in block letters. Inside, a cashier's check. $3,200. And a handwritten note from Blake. "I don't owe you respect, but I owe you this." Killer line. Even in surrender, he still didn't understand. Respect isn't paid in dollars, it's proven in absence. I drove straight to the veterans' shelter, walked inside, spoke to the manager, asked what they needed most. "Water heater," she said. "Winter's been rough." I handed her the check. She blinked. "This is generous." I shrugged. "Comes from a man who thought it'd buy forgiveness." She smiled. "It'll buy warmth." That's better. Back in town, I stopped by the community diner, handed Trish the same mug I'd carried through every battle. "Keep it behind the counter," I said. "Only fill it for me." She turned it over, noting the chip, the initials, the faint crack in the handle Amanda had returned. "Still holds?" she asked. "Better than most people." She grinned. "We've all got cracks. Just means we're not fake." That night, I opened Martha's old recipe box. Tucked behind her famous cornbread card was something I hadn't noticed in years. A second deed. Dated. Notarized. Signed by both of us. It had been a backup just in case of illness or confusion. But now, it was the final nail. It listed me as the sole surviving owner, with transfer restricted without spousal consent. Martha had built that safety net long before any betrayal happened. And Blake had never stood a chance. The house had never legally been under my name alone. It had always been protected by Martha's foresight. Blake's fraud didn't just fail, it activated a clause that invalidated everything he filed. I scanned it, filed it, and added it to Daly's litigation package. Then I wrote my final will. Amanda was still in it. Blake never would be. But I added a line Martha would have approved of. "If my daughter proves herself with action, not apology, this home is hers. But if not, it becomes shelter for the forgotten." The next day I stood in court, mug in hand, papers in the other. And for the first time, the judge turned to me and said, "Mr. Hale, you've waited long enough." The courtroom was too quiet when Amanda stood and whispered, "Please, don't do this." The courtroom smelled like polished wood and consequences. Judge Patterson sat high above, glasses perched low on his nose, reading from the file like it was just another traffic citation. But it wasn't. It was my life. 30 years of sweat, memories, drywall, and dignity all laid out in labeled exhibits. Daly stood to speak, but I stopped him with a hand. "I'll say it myself." The judge nodded. I rose slowly, mug in one hand, papers in the other. "Your Honor," I said, "I'm not here to punish my daughter. I'm here to protect what my wife and I built. What was nearly taken from me in silence, in signatures, and in secrets. I didn't raise my voice. Didn't have to. I gave them love. They gave me paperwork and lies. I set the mug on the railing. This is the last thing Amanda gave me before the lies began. And yet, I kept drinking from it. Because some things still hold even when they're cracked. Killer line. But my love is not a bottomless cup, and I don't pour into hands that try to spill me dry. The judge nodded slowly. Thank you, Mr. Hale. Then he turned to Amanda and Blake. Amanda stood first, trembling, voice thin. Your Honor, I didn't know what Blake had done, but I stayed quiet, and I benefited. That's on me. She looked directly at me. I know an apology doesn't reset trust, but I'm not asking for that. I'm asking for a path, some way back to earning it. Blake stood behind her, silent, jaw clenched. When the judge asked if he had anything to say, he muttered, I'll pay it back. No, I said. You'll live it down. The judge cleared his throat. This court recognizes the protective clause under Mr. Hale's joint deed with his late wife. All fraudulent filings are void. Property remains solely his. He paused, then added, As for civil restitution, the court encourages private negotiation, but is prepared to rule if needed. He banged the gavel, and just like that, the courtroom exhaled. Outside, the steps were colder than I remembered. Amanda followed me out, coat clutched tight, breath visible in the late afternoon air. Dad, she said, if I take that path, what does it look like? I turned slowly, held up the mug. Start by fixing what you broke. She nodded. And Blake? He doesn't exist to me anymore. That night, I returned to the motel and packed my final bag. Carl met me at checkout. You won, he said. No, I corrected. I walked away standing. He tapped the mug as I slid it into the passenger seat. That thing ought to be in a museum. Too many cracks, I said. He grinned. That's what makes it worth looking at. The next morning, I got a letter. Amanda's handwriting. No envelope. Just folded and slipped under my motel door before I left. Inside, one line. I bought a new mug. Same shape. Yours is still better. I'm still learning. I stared at that note for a long time. Then I drove not back to the house, but to the one place where everyone was watching. When I walked into the town diner for the last time, every conversation stopped mid-sentence. The bell above the door rang like it had a dozen times before. But this time, it wasn't just an entry, it was a statement. I stepped into the diner, coat zipped, boots wet from morning frost, and the mug already in my hand. Not because I needed coffee, because I needed everyone to see it one last time. The chipped edge, the faint crack, the initials faded but still proud. Trish saw me first. She didn't speak, just reached under the counter and pulled out the clean cloth I'd left with her yesterday. Wiped a fresh spot. Set it gently down. I placed the mug there. It didn't wobble. Still balanced. Just like me. Roy stood up from the corner booth. Walked over slow, carrying his own coffee. You all right? He asked. I nodded. Then that makes two of us. A few more folks looked up from their plates. One man stood. Then a woman. It wasn't applause. It was presence. And, in a small town, that's louder. Pastor Glenn stepped through the door moments later, as if fate scheduled his breakfast. He walked straight over. You settled? Settled enough. He looked down at the mug, then at me. Still carries meaning? Killer line. It used to be love. Then it became grief. Then proof. Now? I took a long breath. Now it's a reminder. Even when they drop you, you don't spill. Amanda entered 5 minutes later. Not late, not rushed. Just careful. She didn't approach right away. Just stood by the door. Watched. Whispers started, of course. That's her. She came back. Think he'll talk to her? I didn't move. Didn't invite. Didn't reject. She walked forward, one step at a time, until she stood at the counter beside me. I won't ask for your table, she said quietly. Good, I replied. You haven't earned it. She nodded. But, I added, you can sit near it. Respect listens before it speaks. She sat 2 stools away, Trish poured her a coffee in a plain mug. No initials, no memories. Just heat and silence. And for once, Amanda sat with it. Didn't rush to fill the space. Didn't cry for show. Didn't beg. She let it be quiet. That was new. That was growth. Roy leaned in as he stood to leave. "You're leaving this place better than you found it," he said. I smiled. "You mean the town?" He shook his head. "I mean her." The town would talk for weeks, maybe months, about the lawsuit, the hearing, the money, the daughter, the mug. But eventually, stories fade. And when they do, all that's left is what you carry. So when I finally walked out of the diner, I didn't leave the mug behind. I took it with me, past the old church, past the bank, past the porch that once held Blake's lies. The house looked smaller now, but maybe that was just me. Taller. Inside, the light hit different. Warm again. Honest. I walked to the kitchen, placed the mug in the cabinet dead center. Not hidden. Not displayed. Just home. Later that afternoon, Amanda knocked once. Not twice. Not loud. Just enough. I opened the door. She held something in her hands. A gift box. Inside, a brand new mug. Same shape. Different initials. Mine. Just mine. "I'm not asking you to forget," she said. "Good," I replied. "I never will." She turned to leave. I let her. That's love now. Not the kind that forgives everything. The kind that finally respects you enough to walk away when told to. The old mug stayed in the cabinet. But the new one? I left it on the table empty. Because some things still need to be earned. One clean cup at a time. If you were in his place, would you ever let her back in? Or is silence the only true apology? Tell me below, and don't forget to subscribe for more true father stories.